The Empire unearths a lost civilization where humans still thrive. Part 4. The warning came at dawn, station time. Velthar was reviewing cultural exchange proposals when alarms began blaring throughout New Earth. He rushed to the command center where Doyen and his staff were already assembled, their faces calm but tense. "What is happening?" Velthar demanded. Minho pointed to a tactical display showing the space around New Earth. Multiple red contacts had appeared at the edge of the system. "Your military fleet has dropped their stealth systems. They are broadcasting a message." Doyen activated the communication. Ambassador Krenvok's face appeared on the screen, his scales arranged in an expression of smug satisfaction. "Humans of New Earth, this is Ambassador Krenvok of the Valthran Empire. I speak with the authority of the Imperial Military Command. You will surrender control of your facilities and provide complete access to your technology and colonial locations. You will accept Valthran oversight and integration into the Empire. You have 2 hours to comply or we will take these things by force." Velthar felt his world collapse. "This is illegal." The High Council voted for diplomatic contact, not military action. "The High Council is not here," Krenvok said, his image now addressing Velthar directly. "And they will understand when we present them with human technology and territory. You have failed as a diplomat, Commander. Now the military will succeed where you could not." The communication cut off. Velthar turned to Doyen, ready to apologize, to explain, to somehow salvage the situation. But the administrator was not looking at him. He was calmly giving orders to his staff. "Activate all defense platforms. Recall all civilian ships to safe zones. Contact the other havens and inform them of the situation. Initiate Protocol Fortress." "What is Protocol Fortress?" Velthar asked. Minho answered, his expression grim. "It is what happens when someone threatens humanity with extinction. Again." Through the observation windows, Velthar watched New Earth transform. The peaceful orbital platforms he had toured began moving, reconfiguring themselves with mechanical precision. Panels slid away to reveal weapon systems. Civilian vessels docked quickly and sealed themselves inside armored bays. Satellites that had seemed purely scientific reoriented themselves into defensive positions. "You were prepared for this," Velthar said, feeling numb. "We have always been prepared for this," Doyen replied. "We hoped it would never happen. But humanity learned long ago that hope is not a strategy." The agent appeared on a communication screen from the engineering section. "Administrator, all systems are green. Reactors at full power. Defensive grid is online. Planetary installations are ready. We can hold indefinitely." "Civilian status?" Doyen asked. "All non-essential personnel are in shelters. Emergency supplies are distributed. We are as ready as we can be." Velthar looked at the tactical display with new understanding. New Earth was not just a colony. It was a fortress disguised as a peaceful settlement. Every platform, every satellite, every structure had been built with defense in mind. The humans had spent 3,000 years preparing for this exact scenario. Krenvok's fleet began advancing. 20 warships, each one a formidable military vessel designed for conquest and control. They moved in perfect formation, a display of imperial might that had broken the resistance of countless species. "Last chance, humans," Krenvok broadcast. "Surrender now or face destruction. Your primitive defenses cannot stand against the Imperial fleet." Doyen's response was calm and measured. "Ambassador Krenvok, you have made a terrible mistake. You assumed that because we chose peace, we are incapable of war. You assumed that because we hid, we are weak. And you assumed that because we are few, we are helpless. All of your assumptions are wrong." "Bold words from a colony," Krenvok sneered. "Let us see if you can back them up." "All ships open fire." The Imperial fleet launched its first attack. Energy weapons and missiles streaked toward New Earth's defenses. It was a bombardment that should have overwhelmed any normal colony's shields. But New Earth was not normal. The defensive platforms activated, and Velthar watched in amazement as the human systems intercepted every incoming attack. Point defense lasers moved with impossible precision, destroying missiles before they could reach their targets. Energy shields absorbed beam weapons without faltering. The bombardment that should have crippled the colony barely scratched it. "Return fire," Doyen ordered quietly. What happened next would be discussed in military academies for years to come. The human weapon systems activated, and they were unlike anything in the Valthran arsenal. Railguns fired solid projectiles at velocities that made them nearly impossible to intercept. Missiles that could change course mid-flight to avoid countermeasures. Energy weapons that operated at frequencies the Valthran shields were not designed to block. But more impressive than the weapons was the accuracy. Human targeting systems did not aim to destroy. They aimed to disable. Shots hit engine systems, weapon mounts, and shield generators with surgical precision. Within minutes, 3 Valthran warships were drifting helplessly, their crews alive but their ships crippled. "Impossible," Krenvok shouted over the communication channel. "How do primitives have such technology?" "We are not primitives," came a new voice. A human appeared on the communication screen, wearing what was clearly a military uniform. He was older than Minho, with gray hair and cold, calculating eyes. "I am Commander Taeyang of the New Earth Defense Force. Your aggression has been noted and answered. Cease your attack, or we will continue disabling your ships." Krenvok's response was to order his remaining ships to launch a coordinated assault. They came from multiple vectors, trying to overwhelm the human defenses through sheer numbers and firepower. It was a tactic that had worked against countless enemies. But the Valthrans had never fought humans before. Human fighter craft launched from hidden bays, small and fast vessels that moved with impossible agility. Velthar watched the tactical display in disbelief, as human pilots executed maneuvers that should have killed them. They pulled turns at acceleration levels that would crush a Valthran pilot, dove through weapon fire that should have destroyed them, and flew with a precision that seemed impossible. "They're pilots," Velthar breathed. "How do they survive those forces?" "Humans evolved in high gravity," Minho explained. "Our bodies can handle acceleration that would kill most species. Our pilots train from childhood, and they are very, very good at what they do." The human fighters swarmed the Valthran ships, targeting weapon systems and engines with their own precise attacks. They did not destroy. They disabled, crippled, and neutralized. It was a demonstration of capability combined with restraint, a message that said clearly, "We could kill you, but we choose not to." Within an hour, half of Krenvok's fleet was drifting helplessly. The other half had pulled back, trying to regroup and understand what had gone wrong. The ambassador's face on the communication screen showed shock and growing fear. Commander Taeyang opened a direct channel to Krenvok. "Ambassador, I want to make something very clear to you. What you just experienced was us defending ourselves with minimal force. We disabled your ships. We did not destroy them. We targeted systems, not crew. We could have done much worse." He gestured, and the tactical display changed to show information that made Velthar's blood run cold. Hidden throughout the system were weapons platforms, missile installations, and automated defense systems that had not yet fired. New Earth's defenses ran deep, layered, and sophisticated. The humans had revealed only a fraction of their capability. "You came here thinking we were weak because we chose to hide," Taeyang continued. "Let me educate you about humanity. We hid because we learned what happens when advanced civilizations meet primitive ones. The advanced civilization always wins and the primitive one always suffers. We were not willing to be the primitive ones. So we waited. We built. We prepared." He paused, letting his words sink in. "On Earth, we fought wars that killed billions. We developed weapons that could destroy continents. We learned every possible way that intelligent beings can hurt each other. Then we learned to control that knowledge, to use it only when necessary. You forced us to use it today." Krenvok finally found his voice. "You cannot stand against the full might of the Valthran Empire. This fleet is just the beginning." "And New Earth is just one colony," Taeyang replied. "There are 11 others. Each one is as well defended as this one. Each one has learned the same lessons. Each one is prepared to fight for their survival. But more than that, Ambassador, consider this carefully." The display changed again, showing star charts with marked locations throughout the galaxy. "For 3,000 years we have watched your empire. We know your supply routes, your military bases, your political structure. We know your weaknesses because we have spent centuries studying you while you forgot we existed. If you force us to war, it will not be the quick conquest you imagine. It will be long, bloody, and costly, and we will never surrender." Velthar stepped forward. "Commander Taeyang, please. Not all of the Valthran Empire supports this action." Ambassador Krenvok acted without proper authority. "I must contact the High Council immediately. The Empire unearths a lost civilization, where humans still thrive part." The Deep Space Survey ship moved slowly through the darkness at the edge of the galaxy. Commander Velthar stood on the bridge, his reptilian eyes scanning the displays in front of him. He had been exploring forgotten sectors for the Valthran Empire for 20 years, and most days brought nothing but empty space and dead rocks. Today was different. "Commander, we are detecting something unusual," his science officer said. The younger Valthran's scales flickered with excitement. "There are energy signatures coming from the third moon. They appear to be artificial." Velthar moved closer to examine the readings. The moon was covered in ice, orbiting a gas giant that had been marked as unimportant in their star charts. But the scans showed structures beneath the frozen surface. Large structures, and they were still producing power after who knows how many centuries. "Take us closer," Velthar ordered. "Prepare the excavation team." The ship descended toward the moon's surface. Through the viewing window, Velthar could see nothing but white ice and gray rock. But his instruments told a different story. Something massive waited beneath the frozen crust, something that had been built with purpose and intelligence. The excavation took 3 days. Velthar's team used plasma cutters to bore through layers of ice that had accumulated over thousands of years. The deeper they went, the stronger the energy readings became. When they finally broke through to the structure itself, Velthar felt his breath catch in his throat. The walls were made of a metal alloy he had never seen before. They were smooth and perfectly preserved, showing no signs of decay despite their obvious age. Symbols covered the surfaces, written in a language that was not in any of the Empire's databases. The architecture was strange too, with angles and proportions that felt wrong to his Valthran sensibilities. "Bring in the translation matrices," Velthar ordered. "I want to know who built this place." His team moved carefully through the corridors. Emergency lights flickered on as they passed, responding to their presence. The facility had been designed to last, that much was clear. Every system showed signs of redundancy and careful engineering. Whoever built this place had expected it to survive anything. They found the cryogenic chamber on the 3rd level down. The room was enormous, stretching further than their portable lights could reach. Rows upon rows of cylindrical pods filled the space, each one covered in a thin layer of frost. Green lights blinked steadily on each pod's control panel. The translation matrices began processing the symbols on the walls, and Velthar watched as the words slowly appeared in Valthran script. Haven 7, Emergency Preservation Facility. Population, 4847. His science officer approached one of the pods and cleared away the frost. Inside, visible through a transparent panel, was a being unlike anything in the known galaxy. It had smooth skin instead of scales, with hair growing from its head. Its body structure was similar to the Valthran form, but with significant differences. 2 arms, 2 legs, but the proportions were denser, more compact. "Commander, you need to see this," the science officer said. His voice shook slightly. "I ran the genetic analysis. This species matches ancient records in our historical archives." "Which species?" Velthar asked, though something in his chest already knew the answer. "Humans, Commander. These are humans." The word hung in the air like a physical thing. Humans. Everyone in the galaxy knew the stories. They were an ancient race, one of the first to develop space travel. Then they had destroyed themselves in terrible wars, burning their own world until nothing remained. The Empire had records of human ruins found on distant planets, always empty, always silent. No one had seen a living human in over 3,000 years until now. Velthar made a decision that would change everything. Against all protocols for dealing with unknown species, he ordered one of the pods opened. His crew argued against it, citing safety concerns and regulations. But Velthar had spent his entire career finding nothing but ghosts and ruins. This was something extraordinary, and he would not let fear stop him from learning the truth. The pod they selected was near the entrance. According to its display panel, it contained a female human in her mid-20s. The revival process took 6 hours. Velthar and his medical team monitored every step, ready to stop if anything went wrong. But the pod's systems worked perfectly, warming the occupant gradually, flooding her body with revival compounds that the Valthran computers could barely analyze. When her eyes finally opened, they were brown and clear. She looked around the chamber with confusion, then focused on Velthar. For a long moment, they simply stared at each other, 2 beings from species that should never have met. The translation matrix worked quickly, accessing the linguistic data stored in the facility's computers. When the human spoke, her words came through the device in Valthran language. "Who are you? Where am I? How long has it been?" Velthar kept his voice calm and steady. "I am Commander Velthar of the Valthran Empire. You are on the moon you call Haven 7. As for how long, we are not certain. Perhaps 3,000 years, perhaps more." The human closed her eyes and took several deep breaths. When she opened them again, she seemed more focused, more controlled. "My name is Jiwan. I am a civilian engineer from the Haven 7 colony project." She looked at the other pods surrounding them. "Are the others safe?" "All the pods show active status," Velthar assured her. "We have not disturbed them." "You are the first we revived." Jiwan nodded slowly. She tried to sit up, and Velthar noticed how easily she moved despite being asleep for millennia. Most beings would be weak after such an ordeal, but she seemed strong, alert. She looked at her hands, flexing her fingers as if testing them. "You said you are from an empire." "The Valthran Empire. I do not know this name." "What happened to the Krell Federation? Or the Nexian Alliance?" "I do not know these names," Velthar admitted. "They are not in our historical records. Perhaps they existed before the Empire rose to power. Much time has passed, as you can see." Jiwan was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke again, her voice steady despite the weight of what she was learning. "I need to tell you something important. Haven 7 is not the only facility. There are 12 havens scattered across uncharted space. My people, humanity, we did not go extinct. We chose to leave." Velthar felt the scales along his spine rise in surprise. "Leave? Why would your entire species abandon the galaxy?" "Because the galaxy was becoming dangerous," Jiwan said. She met his eyes directly, and Velthar saw intelligence and determination there. The great empires were expanding, conquering, consuming. Earth was dying from our own mistakes, and we knew we were not ready to join the larger galactic community. So we left. We built these havens in secret, far from the trade routes and empire borders. We decided to wait until the galaxy was safer, or until we had no choice but to return. She stood up from the medical bed, and Velthar noticed she was shorter than him, but moved with a confident grace. "I carry the coordinates to the other havens, but I also carry a message. Humanity hid because we feared what the empires had become. If your people want to meet the rest of humanity, you must prove that things have changed." Velthar looked at this human, this survivor from a forgotten age, and realized that everything he thought he knew about the galaxy was about to change. Somewhere out there, hidden in the darkness between stars, humans still lived. They had not perished in fire and ash. They had survived, planned, and waited, and now they had been found. The Empire unearths a lost civilization, where humans still thrive. Part 2. The journey back to the Valthran homeworld took 2 weeks. During that time, Velthar watched Jiwan adapt to her new reality with remarkable speed. She spent hours in the ship's library, learning about the current state of the galaxy. She asked hundreds of questions about the Empire, about other species, about wars and peace treaties that had shaped the last 3,000 years. What surprised Velthar most was how easily she moved through the ship. The gravity was set to standard Valthran levels, which was slightly higher than what most species preferred. But Jiwan never complained or asked for adjustments. She walked the corridors with steady steps, climbed the ladders between decks without pause, and even joined the crew for their exercise sessions. She was stronger than she looked. "Your world must have been heavy," Velthar commented one day as they shared a meal in the officers' dining hall. He had learned to prepare foods that would not poison her, though the nutritional requirements of humans were unusual. She seemed to need more of everything, as if her body burned energy at a higher rate. Earth had strong gravity, yes, Jiwan agreed. She was eating what his chef had called a simple protein meal, but she consumed twice what a Valthran would eat. "We evolved to survive in harsh conditions. It made us durable, but it also made us hungry." She smiled, and Velthar had learned this expression meant friendliness among humans. News of their discovery had already reached the capital. The High Council had sent dozens of messages, demanding reports, requesting details, and finally ordering Velthar to bring the human directly to the council chambers for testimony. The discovery of a living human was unprecedented. Every academic, politician, and military leader in the Empire wanted to know more. When their ship finally entered orbit around the Valthran homeworld, Velthar saw news broadcasts covering their arrival. Crowds had gathered at the spaceport. Security forces had to create barriers to hold back the curious citizens who wanted to glimpse the human from ancient history. Jiwan stood beside him at the observation window, looking down at the planet below. "Your world is beautiful," she said quietly. green and blue with white clouds. It reminds me of Earth before we ruined it. You will see it soon enough, Velthar told her. The council wants to meet you today. They have many questions. I expected that, Jiwan said. I have questions too. I need to understand what kind of civilization your empire has become. That will determine what happens next. The council chamber was a massive circular room with seats rising in tiers around a central platform. Hundreds of Valthran officials filled the seats, representing different regions and factions of the empire. At the highest tier sat the 5 members of the High Council, the most powerful leaders in Valthran space. Velthar escorted Jiwan to the central platform. She stood there calmly, looking up at the assembled officials without any sign of fear or nervousness. If anything, she seemed to be studying them as much as they were studying her. Chancellor Vexnor, the eldest member of the High Council, spoke first. His voice was amplified throughout the chamber. You are Jiwan, a human from the time before the Empire. You claim your species still lives, hidden in secret colonies. This is difficult to believe. I do not need you to believe me, Jiwan replied, her voice steady and clear. The translation matrix carried her words to every ear in the chamber. I only need to speak the truth. Humanity did not die, we left, and we have survived very well in our absence. Ambassador Krenvok, a military official known for his aggressive policies, stood up from his seat. If your species survived, why hide? Why not take your place among the galactic community? Unless you feared you were too weak to compete. Jiwan turned to face him directly. We hid because we learned from our mistakes. On Earth, we nearly destroyed ourselves fighting over resources and power. We developed weapons that could burn continents and poison oceans. When we finally achieved peace, it was because we had lost so much that we had no choice but to change. She paused, letting her words sink in. When we looked at the galaxy, we saw the same patterns repeating. Empires rising through conquest, species enslaved or destroyed, wars fought over territory and pride. We decided we did not want to participate in that cycle. So you ran away, Krenvok said with contempt in his voice. We chose survival over pride, Jiwan corrected him. We chose to build rather than conquer. We chose to wait until we could enter the galaxy as equals, not as conquerors or victims. Scholar Mathena, a respected academic, raised her hand for permission to speak. You speak of humanity as if you still act as one species, one civilization. But 3,000 years have passed. Surely your colonies have developed differently, perhaps even forgotten each other. Jiwan shook her head. The Havens maintain communication through secure channels. We share knowledge, resources, and people. We remain united because we remember what division cost us. Every child born in the Havens learns our history, learns what we lost and why. We do not forget. For the next several hours, the council members asked questions. They wanted to know about human technology, population numbers, military capabilities, and territorial claims. Jiwan answered some questions and politely refused to answer others. She was careful, Velthar noticed, never revealing too much but giving enough information to seem honest. But what impressed Velthar most was when she turned the questioning around. I have answered many of your questions, Jiwan said during a break in the proceedings. Now I have questions for you. Does the Valthran Empire still practice slavery? Do you conquer primitive species and force them to join your civilization? Do you strip worlds of resources and leave them dead? The chamber became very quiet. Several council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Finally, Chancellor Vexnor spoke. We have evolved in our practices. The Empire no longer allows slavery. We offer protectorate status to developing species rather than forceful integration. We have environmental regulations for resource extraction. We are not perfect, but we are better than we were. Good, Jiwan said, because humanity will not return to a galaxy that has learned nothing. We will not expose our people to empires that see other species as resources to be exploited. Krenvok stood again, his scales darkening with anger. You speak as if you have a choice in this matter. You are one being, representing a scattered remnant of an ancient species. The Empire could find your havens with or without your cooperation. You should be grateful we are treating you as a guest rather than a specimen. Jiwan met his angry gaze without flinching. You could try to find the havens. Many have tried over the centuries. None have succeeded. We chose our hiding places well, and we built defenses to ensure we stayed hidden. If you seek us with hostile intent, you will find nothing but empty space, and is that a threat? Krenvok demanded. It is a fact, Jiwan replied calmly. Humanity survived the death of Earth. We survived the journey across the galaxy to uncharted space. We built 12 havens in environments that would kill most species. We have adapted, endured, and thrived without the help or interference of galactic civilization. We do not need the Empire, but perhaps the Empire could benefit from knowing us. This statement caused a stir throughout the chamber. The idea that humans might offer something valuable to the Empire, rather than needing its protection, was apparently surprising to many of the officials present. Velthar watched G1 carefully. She was playing a dangerous game, showing strength without being aggressive, offering cooperation without seeming desperate. She was negotiating from a position that should have been weak but somehow was not. He began to understand that humans had learned many lessons from their violent past, and one of those lessons was how to survive in a hostile universe. The council debated for hours after G1 was escorted to guest quarters. Velthar remained to hear their arguments. Some wanted to send military expeditions to locate and secure the human havens. Others argued for peaceful contact and diplomatic relations. Scholar Mythina gave an impassioned speech about the scientific and cultural value of rediscovering a lost civilization. Finally, as the twin suns set outside the chamber windows, the High Council took a vote. By the narrowest of margins, they decided to pursue diplomatic contact with the human colonies. Velthar was officially appointed as ambassador and envoy. G1 would guide them to the largest human settlement, a place she called New Earth. But as Velthar left the chamber, he saw Krenvok speaking quietly with several military commanders. The ambassador's expression was calculating, and his posture suggested he was making plans of his own. Velthar felt a chill run down his spine. The council had voted for peace, but not everyone agreed with that decision. That night, Velthar visited G1 in her quarters. She was standing at the window looking out at the city lights below. "Your people have decided?" she asked without turning around. "The High Council has approved diplomatic contact," Velthar confirmed. "We will journey to New Earth if you are willing to guide us." "I am willing," G1 said. She finally turned to face him, and her expression was serious. "But Commander, I need you to understand something. There are those in your council who want to control humanity, not meet us as equals. I saw it in their eyes and heard it in their questions. The Empire unearths a lost civilization where humans still thrive. Part 3, the journey to New Earth, took 4 weeks. Velthar commanded a diplomatic vessel accompanied by 3 smaller ships carrying scholars, scientists, and cultural experts. Unknown to him, Ambassador Krenvok had also dispatched a military fleet to follow at a distance, hiding among the asteroid fields and dead zones that dotted their route. G1 guided them through passages that did not appear on any Valthran star charts. They traveled through dense nebulas that would confuse sensor systems, past collapsed stars that disrupted navigation computers, and around gravity wells that could tear apart a ship if approached incorrectly. The routes were carefully designed to keep the human havens hidden from accidental discovery. During the voyage, Velthar spent much of his time with G1, learning about humanity. She told him stories of Earth, of blue oceans and green forests, of mountains that touched the sky and deserts that stretched beyond horizon. She spoke of human history with honesty, not hiding their failures and wars, but also sharing their achievements and dreams. "We were always a contradictory species," G1 explained one evening as they shared a meal in the observation deck. "We could be incredibly cruel to each other, but also capable of great kindness. We destroyed our world, but we also created beautiful art and music. We fought terrible wars, but we also worked together to accomplish impossible things." "It sounds exhausting," Velthar observed. G1 laughed, a sound Velthar had come to enjoy. It is. But it also makes us resilient. We learn to survive in any environment, to adapt to any challenge. When Earth was dying, some people gave up, but others refused to accept extinction. Those are the ones who built the havens. On the 20th day of travel, they emerged from a particularly dense nebula, and G1 pointed to a star system ahead. "New Earth," she said simply. "Home to 6 million humans and growing every year." As they approached, Velthar's sensors began picking up structures. Massive orbital platforms surrounded a terrestrial planet, connected by transport tubes and energy bridges. Satellite networks monitored every approach vector. Agricultural stations floated in perfect orbits, their transparent domes showing crops growing in carefully controlled environments. But what struck Velthar most was the sheer scale of it all. This was not a hidden outpost or struggling colony. This was a civilization that had thrived in isolation for 3,000 years. The engineering was sophisticated, the design was efficient, and everything showed signs of careful planning and execution. New Earth Traffic Control. This is Jiwan aboard the Valthran diplomatic vessel. Requesting permission to approach. She spoke into the communication system using human language. The response came quickly. Jiwan, this is New Earth Control. Identity confirmed. Welcome home. We are reading multiple vessels in your group. Please confirm their intentions. They are peaceful diplomatic envoys from the Valthran Empire. They wish to establish contact with our civilization. There was a pause, longer this time. Then a different voice spoke, older and carrying authority. This is Administrator Doyen. We have been monitoring the situation since Haven 7 was discovered. Permission granted to dock at Platform 7. We will meet you there. The docking platform was enormous, capable of handling ships far larger than Velthar's diplomatic vessel. As his crew secured the ship, he looked through the viewing ports at the human facilities surrounding them. Workers moved through the corridors in protective suits, operating machinery that looked both familiar and strange. The gravity indicators showed levels that made Velthar uncomfortable just reading them. Your people prefer high gravity, he observed. Earth standard, Jiwan confirmed. 1.3 times what most species consider comfortable. We have lower gravity sections for visitors, but most of New Earth operates at home conditions. They disembarked into a reception area where a group of humans waited. The leader was an older man with gray hair and calm, intelligent eyes. He wore simple clothing, practical rather than ceremonial, and carried himself with quiet confidence. Welcome to New Earth, the man said through a translation device. I am Doyen, Chief Administrator of this colony. These are our Security Chief Minho and our Head Engineer Hyejin. Velthar performed the formal Valthran greeting, touching his clawed hand to his chest. I am Commander Velthar, Ambassador of the Valthran Empire. We come in peace, seeking to establish relations between our peoples. We shall see, Doyen said, not unkindly. Much depends on your intentions and actions. For now you are our guests. We have prepared accommodations in the visitor section, where gravity and atmosphere are adjusted for your comfort. Over the following days, Velthar and his team toured New Earth. What they found amazed them. The humans had built a completely self-sufficient civilization. They grew food in vast agricultural platforms using techniques that could produce crops in almost any condition. They manufactured everything they needed from raw materials mined from the planet below and nearby asteroids. Hyejin, the head engineer, showed Velthar their industrial facilities. She was a young woman with quick movements and bright, curious eyes. She explained how human engineering focused on durability and adaptability rather than pure efficiency. We design everything to last and to work in extreme conditions, she said as they walked through a manufacturing plant where machines operated in temperatures that would have killed most species. When you do not have the luxury of replacement parts or outside help, you learn to build things that will not break. But surely this is inefficient, Velthar asked. These systems are overbuilt by Valthran standards, Hyejin smiled. Overbuilt means they survive. When Haven 7 went into preservation mode, its systems ran for 3,000 years without maintenance. That was not luck. That was design philosophy. We build things that endure. Velthar also spent time with Minho, the security chief. He was a tall, muscular man with scars on his hands and a watchful expression. Unlike the friendly Hyejin or the diplomatic Doyen, Minho seemed suspicious of the Valthran visitors. Your people have a long history of expansion, Minho said bluntly during one meeting. You have conquered dozens of species, absorbed their territories, and extracted their resources. Why should we trust that you will treat humanity differently? We have changed, Velthar insisted. The Empire is not what it was. Perhaps, Minho said. But change is easy to claim and difficult to prove. We have been watching your empire for decades, Commander. We know about your wars, your policies, your treatment of weaker species. That is why we stayed hidden. Then why allow us here at all? Minho's expression softened slightly. Because isolation has its costs too. We want our children to know the wider galaxy. We want to trade, to share knowledge, to be part of something larger than ourselves. But we will not compromise our safety or freedom to achieve that. He led Velthar to an observation deck that looked out over the planet below. You see that world? It has storms that would destroy your ships, temperatures that swing from extreme heat to deadly cold, atmospheric pressure that would crush most species. And yet humans live on the surface. We have cities down there, farms, schools, families. We chose this world precisely because it was hostile. It keeps us strong. Velthar looked down at the planet and felt something like understanding dawn. Humans had not just hidden themselves. They had deliberately chosen environments that would make them stronger, more capable, more resilient. They had turned isolation into an advantage. That evening, Doyun invited Velthar to a cultural event. Thousands of humans gathered in a massive amphitheater built into one of the orbital platforms. They shared food, played music, and competed in what Juan called recreational challenges. Velthar watched in fascination as humans ran races, lifted heavy weights, and performed acrobatic feats. What struck him was how they treated these activities. This was not military training, but entertainment. Humans enjoyed pushing their bodies to the limit, testing themselves against each other in friendly competition. We call it sports, Jiwan explained, sitting beside him. It is part of our culture. We compete, we challenge ourselves, we celebrate physical achievement. It reminds us of what we are capable of. It seems like preparation for war, Velthar observed. It can be, Jiwan admitted, but it is also about community, about bringing people together. After Earth nearly died, our ancestors realized that competition does not have to mean destruction. It can also mean growth. As Velthar watched a young human woman lift weights that would challenge a Valthran soldier, he began to understand something crucial. Humans had not grown soft during their isolation. If anything, they had become stronger. They had maintained their physical abilities, their competitive nature, and their drive to overcome challenges. But they had channeled these traits into building rather than destroying. Later that night, as Velthar prepared to sleep in his guest quarters, he received a private message from Doyun requesting a meeting. They met in a secure room, just the two of them. "I need to be honest with you, Commander," Doyun said. "We know about the military fleet following your diplomatic vessels. We detected them 2 days ago." Velthar felt his scales go cold. "I was not informed of any military presence." The Empire unearths a lost civilization where humans still thrive. Part 5. Velthar worked through the night, sending urgent communications back to the High Council. He detailed everything that had happened, including evidence of Krenvok's unauthorized military action and the human response. He emphasized that humanity had shown remarkable restraint, disabling rather than destroying, and that they were offering one final chance for peace. The response came within hours. Chancellor Vexnor himself appeared on the communication screen, his scales pale with anger. "Commander Velthar, the High Council has reviewed your reports. Ambassador Krenvok acted without authority and against explicit orders. He has been placed under arrest and will face trial for his actions. We are recalling all military vessels from human space immediately." "Thank you, Chancellor," Velthar said with relief. "But I must warn you, the humans are now fully aware of their military superiority." "The situation is delicate. We understand," Vexnor replied. "That is why I am personally traveling to New Earth to offer formal apologies and negotiate a proper treaty. The Empire has made a terrible mistake, and we must correct it before it is too late." 3 days later, Chancellor Vexnor arrived with a small diplomatic fleet, all weapons systems powered down and shields lowered in a gesture of peace. He met with Doyun, Commander Taeyang, and the other human leaders in a formal negotiation chamber. Velthar was present as well, serving as witness to what would become one of the most important treaties in galactic history. "On behalf of the Valthran Empire, I offer our deepest apologies," Vexnor began. "Ambassador Krenvok's actions were unauthorized and contrary to our stated intentions. His military aggression violated both our laws and our honor. We seek to make amends." Doyun listened carefully, his expression neutral. "Your apology is noted, Chancellor, but understand that actions speak louder than words. You say one thing, but your military attempted another. How can we trust that the Empire truly seeks peace?" "You are right to question our intentions," Vexnor admitted. "We have not always been honorable in our dealings with other species, but seeing what happened here has taught us something important. Humanity is not weak. You are not primitive. You are a civilization that chose peace from a position of strength, not weakness. That deserves respect." He pulled up a data pad and projected a document into the center of the chamber. "We have prepared a treaty proposal. It guarantees human sovereignty over all your colonies and territories. It establishes trade relationships based on mutual benefit, not exploitation. It creates cultural exchange programs, and most importantly, it includes a non-aggression pact that binds both our peoples to peaceful resolution of disputes. Commander Taeyang studied the document carefully. This is acceptable as a starting point, but we have additions. We want formal recognition that human colonies are forbidden territory for all empire expansion. We want the right to maintain our military forces without limitation. And we want a clause that allows us to offer sanctuary to any species seeking to escape imperial control. The last demand caused surprise among the Valthran delegation. Velthar understood immediately what it meant. Humanity was not just protecting themselves. They were offering to protect others as well. That is, an unusual request, Vexnor said carefully. It could be seen as undermining imperial authority. It could also be seen as a check against imperial overreach, Doyen countered. If you truly have changed, if you truly respect the rights of other species, then you should have no problem with them having an alternative to submission. Call it insurance against future mistakes. The negotiations continued for weeks. Both sides made compromises, adjustments, and clarifications. Scholar Mithina arrived to help draft the cultural exchange portions of the treaty. She spent hours talking with human historians and philosophers, fascinated by how humanity had transformed their violent past into a foundation for peaceful coexistence. During this time, Velthar continued to explore New Earth and learn about human culture. He spent time with Hyojin, who showed him human engineering projects and explained their philosophy of sustainable development. He trained with Minho's security forces and learned about human military doctrine, which emphasized defense, precision, and minimal casualties. But it was Jiwan who helped him understand humanity most deeply. They often sat together in the observation deck, looking out at the stars and talking about the future. Do you think this will work? Velthar asked one evening. Can our peoples truly become allies after such a poor beginning? I think so, Jiwan said thoughtfully. Humans are good at learning from mistakes. We made terrible ones on Earth, and we spent 3,000 years trying to do better. Your empire made a mistake with Krenvok's attack, but you corrected it quickly. That shows growth. But will others in the galaxy accept this? Will they understand? Jiwan smiled. Some will, some will not. But that is always how change begins. One step at a time, one relationship at a time. You found us by accident, but maybe that accident was meant to happen. Maybe the galaxy needed to remember that there are alternatives to conquest and submission. The treaty was finally completed and signed in a ceremony attended by representatives from both civilizations. Chancellor Vexnor and Administrator Doyen placed their marks on the document together, creating the formal alliance between the Valthran Empire and the Human Colonial Union. But beyond the politics and diplomacy, something more important was happening. Individual humans and Valthrans were beginning to form friendships. Scientists were collaborating on research projects. Engineers were sharing techniques and designs. Artists were creating works that blended both cultures. Velthar watched a group of young Valthrans and humans playing together in one of New Earth's recreational areas. They were competing in a game that combined elements of both cultures, laughing and shouting encouragement to each other. It was such a simple scene, but it represented everything the treaty was meant to achieve. 6 months after the treaty signing, Chancellor Vexnor invited human representatives to visit the Valthran homeworld for a cultural festival. Doyen led a delegation that included Jiwan, Hyejin, Minho, and dozens of other humans from various colonies. The event was broadcast across the Empire, and billions watched as humans walked among Valthrans in peace. The humans brought gifts, art, music, literature, and samples of their technology. But more valuable than any physical gift was what they represented. They were living proof that a species could overcome its darkest impulses, that strength and compassion were not opposites, and that isolation was not the only alternative to conquest. During the festival, Jiwan gave a speech that would be remembered for generations. 3,000 years ago, humanity left the galactic stage because we were afraid of what we would become. We had nearly destroyed ourselves, and we did not want to repeat that pattern among the stars. So we hid, we healed, and we hoped that someday the galaxy would be ready for us. She looked out at the mixed crowd of humans and Valthrans. Today I believe that day has come, not because the galaxy is perfect, but because enough people are willing to try to make it better. The Valthran Empire made mistakes. So did humanity. But both of us have shown that we can learn, change, and grow. That is what civilization truly means. Scholar Mythana approached Velthar after the speech. You know what the most remarkable thing is? Humans spent 3,000 years preparing to defend themselves, but they never stopped hoping they would not have to. They built weapons, but they also built gardens. They trained soldiers, but they also taught children to dream. They remembered their capacity for war, but they chose to cultivate their capacity for peace. They are teaching us something important, Velthar agreed. That strength is not about domination. It is about having the power to destroy and choosing to create instead. As months turned into years, the alliance between humans and Valthrans deepened. Other human colonies began revealing themselves, cautiously emerging from their long isolation. The Haven facilities were transformed from preservation chambers into historical museums, where both humans and aliens could learn about Earth's history and humanity's journey. Human technology began spreading through the Empire, always shared voluntarily and with proper compensation. Human medical techniques saved Valthran lives. Human engineering improved Imperial infrastructure. Human agricultural methods helped feed populations on difficult worlds, but the influence went both ways. Humans learned Valthran artistic traditions and incorporated them into their own culture. They adopted Valthran mathematical systems for certain applications. They studied Valthran philosophy and found new perspectives on old questions. 10 years after the signing of the treaty, Velthar was promoted to the High Council, the first Valthran to hold that position while maintaining close ties to another species. G1 became humanity's official ambassador to the Empire, living part-time on the Valthran homeworld and part-time on New Earth. They remained close friends, often meeting to discuss the ongoing cultural exchange and to solve problems as they arose. Because problems did arise, integration was not always smooth. There were misunderstandings, conflicts, and moments when old prejudices resurfaced on both sides.